हाँ जी। वाहे खालसा वाहे जी की फतेह। तीने ताप निवारण हारा, दुख हंता सुख रास, ताको बिघन न को लागे, झांकी प्रभ आगे अरदास। अरदास एक ओंकार वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। वार श्री भगवती जी की पातशाही 10वीं प्रथम भगवती सिमर कह गुरु नानक ਲਈ ਧਿਆਏ। अंगद गुरु ते अमरदास रामदासे होई सहाय। अर्जन हर गोबिंद ਨੂੰ सिमरो श्री हर राय। श्री हर कृष्ण ਧਿਆਈਐ। जिस डिठे सब दुख जाए, गुरु तेग बहादुर सिमरिए। कर नौने दावे ताए, 10वें पातशाह श्री गुरु गोबिंद सिंह महाराज। पंथ दे वाली सब थाई हो सहाय। पातशाह श्री गुरु ग्रंथ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਪਾਠ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਇਹ ਨਿਮਾਣਿਆ ਆਸਰੇ ਦੇ ਆਸਰੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਨ ਪਿਤਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀਓ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਓਟ ਆਸਰਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਜੁੜ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹਨ। ਸਾਈਬਰ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੁੜੀ ਹੈ। ਦਤਾਰ ਪਿਤਾ ਜੀ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਆਗਿਆ ਬਖਸ਼ਣੀ। ਆਪ ਮਿਹਰ ਕਰਨੀ। ਸਰਬੱਤ ਮਾਈ ਭਾਈ ਤੇ ਮਿਹਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਆਪ ਕਰਾਉਣੀ। ਅੱਖਰ ਵਾਧਾ ਘਾਟਾ ਭੁੱਲ ਚੁੱਕ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨੀ। ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਜ ਰਾਸ ਕਰਨੇ ਸੀ। ਪਿਆਰੇ ਮੇਲਣੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਲਿਆ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਚਿਤਾਵੇ। ਨਾਨਕ ਨਾਮ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਤੇਰੇ ਭਾਣੇ
Haji Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh Ji. This is Ravinder Singh connecting with you from Columbus once again. Welcome to this session of Coach Gurbani. It's Saturday, June the 7th. And before we get started, very quickly, guidelines to the participants. I think you're all familiar with them, so I'll run through them rather quickly. Be frank and honest, but not disrespectful or antagonistic. Keep your responses brief. Try and not consume more than 2 minutes of sound bites at one time. Try and also respond to queries in such a manner that it would encourage discussion rather than end the discussion. So I think if we can continue to ask our questions. And lastly, stick to a simple, straightforward, everyday mode of conversation. That said, before I start, any questions? Okay. All right, so in terms of where we are, we have effectively completed Pauri 1 of Japji Sahib, although I can't say that we have completed Pauri 1 because the concept of Hukam, which we started to deal with in the first Pauri, is where we are at, and the second Pauri is in some ways an elaboration of that concept. So in some ways we will be dealing with where we left, but the line-to-line discussion on Pauri 1 has basically completed, so we want to start with Pauri 2 today. And the way we are going to do this is I'm going to provide you with a quick summary, if you will, of where we are, at least in terms of how I understood it. So it's possible that others have different perspectives, but the dialogue so far has centered on Hukam, or divine will, if you want to call it that. And Hukam is what we all need to conform in order to attain the goal of human life, which Guru Nanak calls becoming a satyar. And we agreed that a satyar, we discovered during the course of our discussion, is one who personifies truth, or practices truth, or adorns the truth. And he does so by awakening in his or her person the qualities and virtues expressed in the Mool Mantra. I think we talked about ritual and practice. And if I'm not mistaken, the conclusion, or at least the broad conclusion, was that if practices, if they are undertaken with inner awareness, could certainly be a useful aid in this awakening process and provide the underpinning of a way of life. And I think that is where we pretty much were. We were starting to talk a little bit about haumai as well, but we will save that conversation a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by reading the second Pauri first in the original, and then offer you a very quick English rendition that I at some point made, so that we can have the context in both English and Punjabi. Then what we will do is we will go line by line very quickly. We don't want to detain ourselves, and then jump into the notion of hukam. And if it leads us to haumai, because there is a relationship here that we need to discover eventually, we'll see where it goes. So before I begin, any questions from anyone?
So, Ravinder Singh ji, do you want me to tell you who's on the call so you can?
Yes, please.
We have Dilpreet Singh, uh, Gurdeep Singh ji from Montreal, Harpreet Singh ji from Boston, IJ Singh uncle from New York, Paramjit Singh Rana ji, and Ravel Singh ji, and I think that's pretty much. And Harmandeep Singh, and I think she may be on listening mode, but we can ask.
Okay. Very good. So, any questions from any one of you before I begin a recitation in the original? Okay. Well, we'll start then. The second Pauri of Japji Sahib. Here it comes. Hukmi hovan aakar, hukum na keh ajai. Hukmi hovan ji, hukum mile vadiyai. Hukmi uttam neech, hukum likh dukh sukh paiye hai. एक ना हुक्मी बख्शीस एक हुक्मी सदा पवाइया है हुक्म अंदर सबको बाहर हुक्म न कोई नानक हुक्म जे बुझे ता हौमै कहे न कोई. And a very quick English rendition. Through hukam all forms originate, that hukam no one can state. Through hukam all life is manifest. By hukam, we are richly blessed. Through hukam is rank and order maintained. Through hukam, joy and sorrow ordained. Hukam spells release for some, endless wandering for others it becomes. Writ large in all creation is hukam's rule, immune not even the smallest molecule. Says Nanak, if to hukam we attune, lose forever the sense of separate self we assume. So that essentially is the Pauri. And I'm going to now jump to the first line and open up the discussion. Hukmi hovan aakar, hukam na keha jai. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the rounds, and I need a quick response so that we can at least agree to the akri arth of what is being said. And I'll begin the discussion here with Sardar Ravel Singh ji. Would you want to start off with maybe taking 30 seconds to a minute to give us a sense of what is being said here? Hukmi hovan aakar. Hanji, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੋ ਜੀ? Okay, I think he's not hearing me or I'm not hearing him, so we'll come back to him. IJ Singh ji, would you want to go?
No, let me come in later.
Okay, how about I do this then? How about I offer a quick two-liner and then the panel can comment on this?
Sure.
Perhaps easier that way. So here's what I'm offering to you, and you can critique this and take it from here, just as a placeholder. So, hukmi hovan aakar, hukam na keha jai. So the way I've described it is, hukam is the creator of the world of phenomena that encompasses the formation of galaxies, planets, as well as human forms. But hukam cannot be described because, and I quote from Gurbani, no one knows hukam in its fullness, nor can anyone take stock of its creativity. That's what I'm offering out there. So would you want to go now? Ajay Singh ji, can we go back to you?
You're talking to me?
I'm talking to you indeed.
Okay, all right. Mine, what I have to add here is a continuation of what I said last two sessions that I participated in.
Okay.
It starts with what you've just said here, that hukam cannot be completely described or completely comprehended. So it is not a micromanagement of all life forms, including human. The general rules of our survival and behavior and the conditions for survival are specified. There are things that are unknown, like when you're born and when you die. Nevertheless, those are inevitabilities that will happen. But within that span, then there's plenty of free will, if you wish. And we have talked about that the last time, and I mentioned that and went on it. So what I am reminded of is a line from Norman Vincent Peale. Norman Vincent Peale was a philosopher considered the prophet of positivism in this culture, in American culture, in the last century. He is now dead, not too long though. And he said that much as it is not possible for a developing fetus to describe what the world would be after he is born, similarly, it is not possible there is a veil through which we may not see to what life will be, or if there will be, or what form it would be. All the models are meant, in a sense, to accommodate our very human idea of order and hukam and micromanagement, and that's not necessary. What will be good if you live this one right. And that's the way I look at hukam. Allows you to accept things that you cannot control, allows you to accept things that you will not understand. And there are things in life that nobody will understand, no matter how much we know. And allows one to accept and therefore to move forward. So hukam is essential for that. And I will rest my case at that, on that for a moment, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, I am going to make a suggestion to the panel here. It seems to me that these lines are all quite intertwined, and may I suggest that we take this whole stanza collectively, because we are talking about hukam at the end of the day and its various manifestations, whether they are as order in the natural world or even order in the ethical or moral framework that exists within us. So I want to put this out there. Would you rather that I very quickly gave you 2-line translations of each line, and then we just go back and discuss hukam collectively? Which way would you want to go?
I think the idea is best understood collectively as a whole.
Okay.
And of course, the translations are necessary. Sometimes so one can repeat the translation of the whole thing.
So let me just. So if it is agreeable to everyone, raise your objection. If it is not, what I'll do is take about a minute maybe to simply go through the lines and provide a placeholder translation, and then we'll revert back to the broader question.
For example, in the translation that you just did, the first 2 lines earlier, I think, or more than that. In the translation, somewhere it said, "Not a molecule can move."
That was just my rendition.
Again, I understand. I understand that, but that's what I'm saying. Translation sometimes metaphors and analogies move us in the wrong direction, because that will come to micromanagement again. So continue with the translation.
Well, I'm not. We can talk about that. I'm not sure I agree with you entirely on that, but nonetheless, if we want to take this approach, should I then proceed? I'm waiting for some others to pipe in.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, it seems to me.
If we can do line by line a quick thing, and then we can come back to the.
That's what I'm offering, because if you open up a line to discussion, then we'll get bogged down in that line. And then I suspect there will be the danger of a lot of repetition. And that's why I want to get a feel from the people on the panel here.
No, do the line by line translation, and then open the discussion for a full.
Okay, all right, let me do that. Let me set the context then. Okay. We did the first line, so I'm now going to come to the second one. Hukmi hovan ji hukam mile vadiyai. And the quick line explanation is hukam breathes life into all sentient beings and invests them with blessings. The greatest of all blessings is another, which gives us. Now, mind you, this is my description that I'm reading, so bear with me. Through hukam, Hukmi uttam neech hukum lik dukh sukh paiye. Hukam determines the supply chain, social order, and establishes the law that brings joy and sorrow. Put another way, since Hukam is the source of all creation, there is no high and low, and joy and sorrow become, at least in large part, the outcomes of human choice. Hukam controls the endless cycles of birth and death. Bakshish is commonly used to mean a blessing or a gift or even a tip for some service rendered. Here it is used as a metaphor for salvation. Just like a tip is earned, so is bakshish to be earned through our actions. Accordingly, some remain in the endless migratory cycle of birth and death, while others secure an early exit. Hukme andar sabko, bahar hukum na koi. Everything is contained within Hukam, from the physical structure of the universe to the social and moral order that governs humans to the quantum world. Nothing is immune from the authority of the Hukam. And lastly, Nanak hukme je baje ta haumai kahe na koi. This line is the crux of Guru Nanak's message. Solving or living the riddle of Hukam is a consciousness altering experience that results in an awareness of the true nature of things. The consequence is profound. We see, and I have that in quotes, everything connected in an underlying unity. There is no separate self. Haumai. So basically, this is just what I'm offering as quick translations, and now we can take this concept together, the notion of Hukam. And I want to now start the discussion with Hukam, just taking off from where Ajay Singh left, meaning, I know that he's emphasizing a lot of micromanagement. So let's talk about whether Hukam means micromanagement of our daily lives, and then we'll go to some other questions.
I have to correct you on that. I'm not emphasizing it, I'm rejecting it.
Okay. You're rejecting it through your emphasis. So
yeah, so you got to be sure of that.
Yeah, so we'll go to that then. All right, let me go back to Ravel Singh ji. Are you there now? Can you hear us?
I'm there, yes.
Anji, so would you like to comment on what Ajay Singh just said on Hukam and his rejection of micromanagement?
You see, this micromanagement statement of Dr. Inderjit Singh is made quite often by him. It's a scientist's point of view, in the sense that not only scientists, everybody, when we talk about something about cause and effect anywhere, if you do it in the logical way, it's accepted. If a scientist says, it's accepted. But when you put it in the religious way, then say you're trying to micromanagement. Please understand this point. Hukum does not mean somebody is micromanaging. Hukum just means that everything that you do has an effect, and it should be seen. If I overeat, I will get an upset stomach. If I do not eat, my physique will go weak. If I go take a very cold drink, I'll spoil my throat. If I keep on taking too much of acidic things, and I will develop acidity in my stomach. These are things will be accepted. Similarly, if I keep on indulging in vices, they'll have an effect on my life, on my psyche and everything. So that is Hukum is not something somebody. First thing that we should understand is that there is no person who's giving this Hukum. You see, Hukum is normally, or command or order is normally taken as if somebody is there to give that order and is micromanaging. No, there's no such thing. It is a natural thing that is happening according to the laws of nature, and that is how Hukum should be looked at.
Of course.
Thank you, Ji.
That's right.
Thank you. Dilpreet Singh Ji, let me go to you.
Anji, I think I will agree with that it is not a micromanagement, it is not a command. It is a framework which exists and slowly it keeps evolving and we are understanding it. But on the other side, the results are not fixed. Some of the results are situational. and it depends on the situation also, and the results may vary depending on the situation.
So do you think that do you think that the word command perhaps throws us off a little, because we are accustomed to thinking of command as someone giving us, commanding?
Right. See, that is the thing, right? Since our childhood, what we have been seeing is everybody points towards the sky and tells that, okay, God is sitting there and he is watching what we are doing. And anything happens, we point towards the sky. And that perception is getting built slowly and slowly, and we build it in our minds that there is something on the top who is controlling, who is watching, and all. I think that it that conceptions is built as we agree or discuss more and more and keep doing more and more of the same thing.
I think, may I add something there?
Can you hold your thought? Let me just go through the panel, and then I'll come back to you with a follow-up. So, Harpreet Singh, do you want to say something on this?
Yeah, this is a fascinating discussion, and I think the question that frequently gets raised in this context is, whether this is a command, whether this is Hukam has something to do with the predestination, whether So I think there've been some very good comments made. I also don't think that we can separate out certain instances that are not tied to Hukam, what Dr. Ajay Singh is calling micromanagement, and other instances that are under the influence of Hukam. Like the Pauri tells us, nothing escapes the influence of Hukam. So in totality, anything that goes on is impacted by Hukam, or is something that is caused by Hukam. And I think the idea of seeing this as the law of nature is attractive, as long as we don't forget that we are also kind of playing a role in which it's not predestination, and we have the laws of the karma that one would call the idea that if we do things right, then the end result might be different. So it's not just.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but would you then say, are you suggesting that this is akin to setting the rules of a game, and the outcome of the game can depend on how we play it?
Yeah, I think that's a nice analogy to make. That we are not totally helpless. We are not are going to live a life that with the expectation that the outcomes are already predetermined. The laws of nature, or the rules of the game, are telling us the right from wrong, and it's up to us to make the best of it.
So then, would you also agree, Harpreet, then perhaps part of the issue here is that our comprehension of key Gurbani terms like Hukam are limited because of the language we are using, right? So we are just sort of recognizing how tricky it becomes when we think of it in terms of command, right? I mean, could that be an underlying sort of limitation in how we understand Hukam?
Yes, so the I think the English language, obviously we lose a lot when we are translating, and also when we look at Hukam, the etymology and the background, it's first used in the Quran, and obviously Guru Nanak is no stranger to the Quran, and but it's again used in a very different sense in the Quran, where it's subjected to an interpretation where God sits on a throne. God has, two hands. He's is able to, give a command like a king. So as we had, someone just mentioned that's not our conception of God, right? That's more of a Semitic God. And so when Guru Nanak is using the term, he's radically reinterpreting it, to suit his own framework, his own theology, and so we have to extricate ourselves from, and the culture in which we today live, and kind of say, what is this going to mean originally, or what did it mean originally, and so we don't lose through the translation process.
Right. Thank you. Let me jump here to Gurdeep Singh ji from Montreal. Anji, would you like to comment on the discussion so far?
Sasrikal ji, I think my voice is clear. To me, it's a divine will. And he created the whole universe with his divine will. And it's not applicable 100% to the human life. As it's applicable to all the other forms of life on this universe. With the human life, he has given him a little bit liberty to understand what's right and wrong. So he comes under the action of karmas. But once he passes, which is, we call it the Chautha Pad. I don't know how to translate it into English. We are living in three gun. In three gun, which is Rajo, Sato, Tamo, we are responsible for our own actions. We cannot pretend that this is the hukam. When I go and kill somebody and say this was the hukam of the God, so I didn't do anything wrong. No, here I'm responsible for my own action. Once when I cross this path, these three gunas are under the Maya. That's the illusion. Rajo, Sato, Tamo, when we'll explain this thing, how it works, which is good, bad, and worst. We are always in these three moods. Either we're in the best mood, when we like to give, or we're in the bad mood, when we hate everybody, we want everything is belong to me, I don't want to share. So one is in between when we're in the normal way. So we always pass our life all these through three stages of the mind. But nevertheless, when we say if we want to get the divine will, that's the Chautha Path. Chautha Path, then we can only know that through the help of Guru. Now, what is Guru? This whole explanation of Hukam, which is mentioned here in this Pauri, is explained throughout in Guru Granth Sahib. I will read 2-3 lines. Gur ke sabde Hukam Pushan, page 223. Sache Gurte Hukam Pushan, page 414. So without the help of Sacha Gur, we can't understand. Now, then we have a question, what is Sacha Gur? So that we will discuss other time. Gur mein aap rakhya kartare. Next line, Gur mein aap sumoye sabd burtaya. So unless we understand these lines and we follow this, unless we have a Guru, then we take Guru's guide, which is Gurbani or Guru. It's very difficult for us in a human life to understand what is the Hukam.
Thank you, Ji.
The divine will, he created the whole universe, he's for all the other lives except the human being, because
we'll come back to this
the human life. So he has to know what is right and wrong, what is he doing within his hukam, what he is doing with his own will.
Thank you. We'll come back to this point. You raised a good point here, but we'll come back to it. I want to give the others an opportunity. We have Paramjit Singh Rana, I believe. No? Okay. Harmandeep Singh? Okay, no. Let me go back to Ajay Singh, who had a follow-up observation. All yours.
Well, that was a long time ago. So let's move on. Okay. So, I think part of the contradictions in our understanding of Hukam stem from the fact that we humans, one, of course, we recognize that that we do have some will to do some things, some ability, but it's limited, and there are many things that we do not understand. Hence the construction of the three-decker universe with a God above, a hell below, and we in between somewhere floundering, not knowing which way to go.
But
So,
I don't think, is that a view that we all accept as Sikhs?
No, I didn't say that yet.
Yeah.
That's the next sentence.
Yeah. Okay.
To my mind, that is the Judeo-Christian Islamic view.
Yeah.
And that is not fundamental to Guru Nanak's message. Now, we have in our confusion of interpretation made it so. That's why we look up to the sky or whatever we do. But that is not part of the Sikh message, not my understanding.
So are you suggesting then that
so when we do not understand, we do not control things, we do not understand what happened and why it happened and what could have done to deserve it, something like this. So then we blame it on a arbitrary, capricious God. And that is absolutely, to my mind, not what the Sikh message is. So the problem really lies in when we look at a command, then it's easy to run to the conclusion that everything is in God's command because not a ki kadam patta nahi hilna without his command, huh? Not a leaf will move. Well, that's not true. If we have some degree of free will, so does the rat and so does the cow. A different kind. It's a different world. In other words, all creation has certain rules within which it operates. But within those rules, the rules of nature, there's a certain freedom that every part of the creation has.
Okay.
So that's my case on that.
Thank you. I think I want to just try and play back to the group here what I have heard. I don't think anyone here is suggesting that we are being micromanaged. I think that came out quite clear. We also, I think, all sort of accepted the fact that the use of English terminology and perhaps the influence of the Judeo-Christian sort of way of looking at the world does at times confuse the issue when we start thinking in terms of a capricious God. But I think we are also in agreement that no matter how we try to define Hukam, our definitions or explanations will remain meager approximations. Hukam is ineffable in some ways, and no matter how we try to get at it, we are not going to be able to explain it fully. And that's. But in terms of the fact that we have choices, obviously, if we did not have choices, Guru Nanak would not have suggested ape bij ape kha later on in the Japji. So I guess the issue really is to make honest choices and to be able to live with the choices that you make. That's what I have sort of gathered so far, and I do not know that we want to sort of. I certainly can't think of any other question around Hukam, although I do have some personal sort of thoughts about it. Perhaps I'll throw them out. One is the idea of Hukam as being God's will running through history, and I often think if there is a will, or if there is Hukam, or if there is direction, or if there is order, I wonder if there is a underlying unity of purpose, or if there is direction. Much like how Hegel is suggesting in his sort of philosophy. Is this something that I think? Does anyone want to address that? Does Hukam mean that there is a direction as well that we are going in? Harpreet Singh, do you want to talk to that? Okay.
Yeah, well, I think the points raised so far are, I agree with you. There is some convergence here, but maybe we can go to the last line, that one who understands Hukam does not say I am, the haumai.
We will get there. I just wanted to exhaust any other possibility around Hukam, and then because that is the critical line.
Right.
If Hukam is such that it cannot be fully described, that means it cannot be fully comprehended either, and therefore possibilities cannot be exhausted by definition.
Well, I think the surely cannot is ineffable. It can be described, but something could be ineffable, but still one can intuitively understand it, right? So
intuitively understood is not always intuitively communicated that well.
Right, but
a problem.
So I think that's my understanding, that Hukam is ineffable. If I were to tell you what it is, I can't. But
that's right.
But at the same time, the last line is telling me that once I intuitively understand it, then I won't say I am.
Then you can live with it. Then you can live within it.
Yeah, and I would like to respond to you.
It's a model for living.
Yeah, let me respond to I mean, I think he just said that it cannot be communicated if it is intuitive, and I would submit to you that when you know something intuitive, there are non-verbal ways of communicating.
I should have added intuitively communicated completely.
Well, we will go with what you said earlier. So
I understand.
So I'm with Harpreet here. It's ineffable. I am of the feeling here, and I would like others to chime in, that, you know, I believe that the Guru is telling us that we have embedded in us another way of knowing other than just the intellect. Yeah. And it is to this that he is pushing us. And I call it somewhat mystical. It's a mystical faculty, but I think we do have faculties other than what we know through the intellect. And it is in that sense, even though it is beyond definition and we can't fully describe it, it lies very well within the range of our human experience. We can certainly experience it. I want to throw this thought out with the others, and then we'll go to the last line. Does anyone want to add to this? Dilpreet Singh, do you want to say something about what we are just talking about?
Anjivirji, see, I want to take everyone back to the two lines, right? I think if we discuss in Sikhi what those are, as per Guru Nanak's message, what those two lines mean, like Hukme Uttam Neech Hukam Likh Dukh Sukh Paiye. Here the word likh is very important. I think we have to discuss this. Is it a written law? And then ikna hukmi bakshish ik hukme sada pavaiye means, is it that somebody is in the cycle of life and death, or the meaning as per Guru Nanak is that some people understand it, and then he has previously mentioned that who don't understand, they keep on doing the rituals which are of no use. I think we have to discuss that he is pointing towards that pavaiye means that people are lost. It has nothing to do with the birth and death cycle.
I'm going to open that up. That's a good point. Who wants to take this on? Does this pavaiye here mean life and death, or does it mean being lost, as we often are?
I'll take the second alternative.
Oh. Okay, very well.
Okay.
Does anyone?
This is not talking about life and death. It's talking about a lost soul in this world, in the life you live.
Ravel Singh ji, do you want to comment on that?
I have a basic problem with the discussion that is going on.
Hanji, please.
Sorry, everybody is giving his views on this, that, but quite. Clearly, for example, we started with the fact that we don't know what Hukam is. Well, for God's sake, if we don't know what Hukam is, then how are we going to obey it? Hukam has to be known. Hukam has to be, yes, we've not understood, and therefore, for example, not only understood, we knew Hukam, but we have forgotten it. For example, Guru Nanak says quite clearly that Aya sun parn ko bani na visar lage analalach birtha janam prani. So we have forgotten what we were told. That is the Hukam. That was given for my guidance, for my direction, on my role in life, and I have forgotten. And that is why karo benanti suno mere mita sant tehal ki bela. Sant tehal ki bela. That is this the time I have got to find the Guru, serve the Guru, and learn from the Guru. in our case, Guru Granth Sahib, why am I here for? What am I here for? And that is the hukum for me. What am I hukum for is it's hukum for me, and I've got to carry that out. So therefore, I would very earnestly request everybody that it is fine if we are going into a discussion on what the scientist believes or what the rationalist believes and what the religion should believe. No, we can set that aside, and we should just go by the wording of the Pauri. And the translation that you've given is a translation does not take into account the words of these various lines that have been given. That is in the very first participation that I did. I had suggested that we should go by line, not just by the way you've given the translation, but by every word of the line to understand every word, and then otherwise we will be just giving our views. This is what I feel is the translation, and be done with it. No, if we analyze every word of the line, it will take time certainly, but I think it's going to be worth it. And for example, hukmi hone akar hukum na keha jai. What is akar? Why hukum na keha jai? Hukmi homan ji hukum mile budiyai. Hukmi andar sab ko bahar hukum na koi. All this is hukum, and we should accept it that this hukum means there's something that we are subject to, something that applies to us, and that to my understanding. There's a very beautiful line in Gurbani which says कि "Uha hukum tumhara suniye, iha harjas tera baniye." There, before the soul took birth, there the hukum was heard, hukum was told to it, and when we come here, we are supposed to acknowledge. Yes, we were given that hukum. We should acknowledge the one who was given that hukum to us, and then carry on. Once again, emphasizing the fact that it is not a person who's giving the hukum.
Thank you on that. I'm sorry, I need to cut you off because time-wise. Thank you for your observations, but I heard you say 2 or 3 things to which I want to respond. I think the last one, the thing that you said is you objected to the fact that we were providing a translation and not going line by line. I would say to you that when we began, I asked everyone if there was any objection to doing that, and it seems to me that a majority of the people did not, and I did not really hear any objection coming through. Now, if line by line, the way you're suggesting is how we want to do it, I personally have no preference one way or the other. So I did not hear you object then, so which is why we proceeded. The first thing you also mentioned is that everyone is here giving their views. Well, I would hope very much that people are giving their views. That's why we are here. Now, our views have obviously got to be different, and I think that not everyone has the same view, but we are here to exchange views. And the third thing that you mentioned was that we have to know hukam, and I think there is a slight distinction that each one of us is trying to make here. I think when we say that we don't quite understand hukam or describe it, we are speaking more intellectually. I think what we are trying to say, if I'm not mistaken, that's what I'm understanding it, that we need to understand it through another faculty, not necessarily through your thought process, because your thought process, as Guru Nanak is saying, will not get you anywhere. But that's my feeling. But I'm going to ask the panel again, do you want to go back to a line by line, as Ravel Singh ji is suggesting, or, I mean, I'm okay either way.
With due regard, I would like to say, what is the purpose of all this thing that's going on here? Are we just to give a general impression of what is there in the Gurbani on there, or are we trying to learn Gurbani word by word to say, and then understand the message that the Guru Sahib is giving to us?
I would open that up to the panel. I please speak up, because I've already expressed my views.
I would think that you need a combination of the two. It's like reading, and I'm not equating Gurbani with other poetry or Shakespeare or any of this kind, but it's like reading any poetry. You have to know the literal meaning of the words, and so you have to have an understanding word by word what it means. And yet you have to transcend the literal meaning sometimes or often, because the literal meaning can lead one astray. And that happens with the best poetry, and that happens with Gurbani as well. So you have to do it word by word to understand what the language says, and then perhaps understand the philosophic depth of it and what's being pointed to, and then transcend the literal meaning.
Got
That's
it.
my view.
I'm going to move to, I do want everyone to actually speak up, because now we are talking about method, which is good, because, you know, when we started this process, we reminded ourselves that we are going to be very mindful of the fact that this is going to evolve. This is not something that we've done before, and therefore there'll be constant tweaking, and perhaps this is a good opportunity to talk about that. So Harpreet Singh, do you have any thoughts? You've been back after quite an absence, on how to do this.
No, I think it's essential to first understand the literal meaning, and that's not going to happen without us going line by line. And once everyone's on the same page on the literal meaning, and it seems that we are not, right? So it seems that there are.
But is getting on the same page our goal here?
Well, no, I think even if we agree to disagree, that's fine. But as long as everyone understands what the terminology means, I think we can at least agree on the terminology, or or provide different variations on the terminology, right? I mean, it's all right to disagree, but having that basic understanding is essential before people start giving opinions on what the whole Pauri means.
Okay, thank you. Dilpreet Singh?
And we will see the word meaning is fine, but we have to also see that every body of Gurbani is there to make us vichar. There is a power, there is a hidden meaning in every body. We cannot, yes, it is good idea to go by the word meaning, but at the end we also need to see that what is the message and how this message is applicable to us. Because if we see, there are many things that sees fit Deo, or sees that we have to cut our head and present it. Those are, we cannot go by the literal meanings like mus rove Kabir ki mai, and Kabir Sahib is saying that I have killed my sons, ladke mare, ladkiyan mariyan. So there is a literal word meaning is there, but more important is the message and what message they are trying to give and how that message is applicable to us and it will benefit us or change us.
Okay. Let me ask Paramjit Singh Ji Rana if he's there. I don't think he's there.
I think.
How about Gurdeep Singh Ji in Montreal?
And to me, first we start with the meaning word by word, but then there's this explanation of this. Like for example, "Kau Nanak jin hukam pashata, tis sahib ka tin ped jata." So we can't find the whole answer by our own explanation from these two bodies. We have to have the knowledge of the whole Guru Granth Sahib. Because the whole purpose of having a Guru Granth Sahib, 1430 pages, just to explain the Japji Sahib. So how can we understand just by translating the two lines only into the word meaning, but then how do you individually take it, then what is the direction it gives? There are four meanings actually. One is antaratma, when you get intuition with him, with God, then you understand the perfect meaning of this. But nevertheless, we have to start from the word meaning, and then we explain further as per your own thoughts, things, how you take it. So to me, the total knowledge of Guru Granth Sahib has to be very essential to explain any even single line in Guru Granth Sahib. Its explanations are there, but we have to find out. But it's a good way, but we started. First we start word by word meaning, and then let's go how we can explore with the help of the Gurbani. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji. All right, very good. But here's what I want to play back to you. When we began this discussion, early on into the discussion, I had actually asked everyone if it was okay to go with the translation. And I got the impression, the distinct impression that it was. Obviously, we do want to do line by line. So I'm going to come back to you and say, how do you propose that we do it line by line? I want to understand because it's essential for us to manage the format. We also need to understand that a lot of us here do actually engage with Gurbani and have sort of, understood the sort of word meanings. So is there value in that? I mean, this was something that we talked about earlier. But nonetheless, if we are going to do line by line, I would ask you to offer suggestions on how do we do it. Who takes on the line and explains it? How do we move on, and how do we control our time? And I'm going to open this up again I'm going to start with you again, Harpreet, because you have experience in these matters.
So I think no one's disagreeing that one needs to have the full context of Guru Granth Sahib, Gurmat, what we Sikhs believe is being communicated as to by the Guru in totality. So, but you have to begin somewhere. You have to begin with the message of the Pauri, the stanza, and understand if we were doing a more rigorous exercise, one would even go and try to understand the etymology of each word and see how it's used throughout the Guru Granth Sahib. So we all agree on what the meaning is, and the classic example here is the line about whether Guru Sahib is talking about life and death, and whether it's transmigration or not in this body. So I think those kind of issues are really important. They're the basics before we can.
So how would you suggest we do it? I'm really interested in the format. How do we do it? Does the moderator do it? Do we rotate it to participants so that they come prepared early on? How do we do this?
So I would take that to the discussion forum, that before we begin the discussion, we should have one person who is just like we did. Ravel Singh ji wrote a very nice discussion on the 40, and then why don't we all discuss and debate it in the discussion, the specific terminology, the specific meaning of the line, and then we can reserve this online meeting for the larger discussion, a discussion on the not on the specific terms and meaning, but on the larger perspective that we all bring.
I think in theory that sounds good, but with the time limitation for everyone, I think it is very difficult for me to expect that someone will write the blog and other people will put their comments there, and then they will join for the discussion. We found that it is pretty much very difficult even to get 1 hour time for everyone to join the meeting. So on the format side, I think as Sardar Ravel Singh ji already wrote the blog, and that pretty much covered the all meaning of the Pauri. So we pretty much take the rotation every week that someone will write the blog and put their interpretation of the Pauri, and everyone should read it before the meeting, and then very quickly whoever wrote the blog can go over and summarize in first 5-10 minutes, and then if we don't agree on particular word or something, we take on that words, and then we start discussing the complete concept of the body. What message are we trying to learn, and how it affects us in day-to-day life.
Okay. Ajit Singh, do you have any ideas on how should we rotate this, or how do we take this line by line? What should we assume before we come here?
Well, that's what the
mechanics of it.
Huh?
The mechanics. How should we rotate? I mean,
yeah,
I know I rarely get a chance to talk to you about the mechanics of this collectively, and since I have you all here, I think this might be just the best time to figure this out. So
I have to do some more thinking on it. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So here's what I think what we need to do is all agree at least to the format and the cadence of this discussion. I mean, we certainly can't all agree on what Hukam means to us, but we can certainly agree on how we are going to come to this discussion prepared, how, if at all, we are going to rotate, how that blog should in fact look like. Maybe have a template that says, and I know I like Harpreet's suggestion of maybe the etymology of the words as well. Perhaps the individual who takes on the responsibility of putting it out there will then provide the etymology as well, and try and stay focused on the meanings of the words. And then when words like pavaye, come up, which are obviously going to be discussed, perhaps make a notation there saying that this is what it literally means, but perhaps this is a point for discussion. That is what I would suggest. Would that make sense, Harpreet?
Can you hear me?
Hanji.
And you see, what have worked, I think, very good in the past is that you go line by line and give that line to one of the panelists and don't give that line to everyone.
Okay.
And next panelist gets the next line. And if anybody wants to add to it, and then only let them add, otherwise if everyone is in agreement, then we can move on to the next line. I think that has worked very well in the past with us.
Okay, I think we have some ideas here. So Harinder, why don't you and I take this offline and put out some sort of a guideline for the panelists who come on.
ठीक है जी, sounds good.
ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ 2-3 ਮਿੰਟ ਰਹਿ ਗਏ ਨੇ. I don't think we can go to the last line. Should we take this to be a good stopping point, and with the understanding that when we come back on Wednesday, we will actually start with the last line, which is hukam je bujhe ta haumai kahe na koi.
I think, Virji, we have to go back to the other line.
Or should we go line by line again? Or should we start line by line on this body?
Right. We should start line by line, that's what.
Hanji, mainu baki bhi vote deo na. Hanji, Harpreet, what do you think? Yes, no?
ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਰਹਿ ਗਈਆਂ ਨੇ, the things that we I don't think we need to go, it's going to take some things are going to be discussed quickly, others might take time. So I agree, we haven't exhausted the discussion on this 40 yet to go to the last line.
Okay.
Go to the last line.
And I think there are few questions also on this podi. I think so.
Okay.
We can revisit those questions also next time. I think we can start with line by line,
okay,
and then cover those questions and then focus on the last line.
All right. That's what we'll do. And we'll send out some guidelines on how we are going to actually use the discussion format, so that we get a cadence. And I'm sure that as we move along, we'll probably tweak this process again.
Sure. And I think I would also encourage everyone to that put as much information on the blog, because in the discussion we don't have too much time, like everyone gets 2 minutes each. So in the blog everyone have pretty much write their opinion in detail. So use blog as much as possible, and then everyone should read it before coming for the meeting.
Is there anything anyone wants to add?
Hanji, मैं गुरदीप सिंह बोल रहा हूँ जी.
Hanji.
मैं ये ऐड करना चाहना कि I know the way you started today was good too. We should go line by line, literally meaning of the words. Then we discuss. The panel will take over. Example: there's an English translation of Guru Granth Sahib by Professor Manmohan Singh. He mentioned the literally meaning of a word from Punjabi to English. And then at the same time, if you see the translation by Dr. Veer Singh Ji, he has given the whole spectrum of this. He went into so much detail. This is how we are doing actually. You are doing the right way. We first go with the literal meaning of the words, then how everybody feels, and on the light of a Guru Bani. I think to me it looks fine the way you are already doing. Thank you.
May I add that don't forget that the literal meaning of a word is not fixed. It can be quite plastic. It depends very much on the context.
That's
the
true.
same word can mean different things
That's
in
true.
different contexts.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you can't
I think
have
we have some good
one
suggestions.
fixed literal meaning. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I think we have a lot of good suggestions here, and Harvinder and I will try and put out a guideline and a template on how to sort of move this. Dilpreet makes a very good suggestion on how to move forward with line by line. In other words, we'll assign lines to the panelists, which will mean that some of us will have to come somewhat prepared for the discussion, and that's a good thing. Is there anybody else who wishes to add anything or say anything before we break up? Achaji, thank you very much for a very interesting and sort of vigorous discussion. Hope to see you on Wednesday, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the evening. Fateh Parwan Karni ji, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.